Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Bobbity Bobbity Books. My name is Ellie and today we're going to be judging books based on their covers. Before I get into the video, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much if you've subscribed to my channel. We recently hit a big milestone. We hit 1,000 subscribers, which I can't actually believe. It's been like my biggest goal. I think when I started this channel, I was like, if I could reach 1k subscribers, that would be insane, because at the time it felt like such an unreachable goal. So the fact that we are here and that I've reached that goal is just amazing. So thank you so much if you have subscribed to my channel. It really honestly means the world. And I also just wanted to say that I recently went on honeymoon. We actually went to Disney World for 2 weeks and we filmed some videos while we were there, mostly for like our own memories, but I thought it'd be fun to put them together into some vlog style videos, but I didn't want to saturate this channel with non-bookish content. So I've decided to go ahead and make a second channel called Bibbidi Bobbidi Bonus and I'll be uploading some footage from our honeymoon over on that channel. So if you are interested in what we got up to, please go ahead and check it out. I'll have the link down below. I think I'm going to upload it at the same time as this video, so you can head on over there after watching this one if you have any interest at all in our holiday. Okay, so this video, so today we are going to be comparing and contrasting UK versus US book covers. So I thought this would be fun because it's basically an excuse to talk about some upcoming releases, because I'm going to be doing this for 2024 books, and I also just thought it's quite interesting comparing different art styles, and also if you're thinking about picking up any of these books in 2024, it might be a nice idea to have a little look at the different covers so that you know what you're going to buy. If you're anything like me, the cover art does make a difference. I know we're not supposed to judge books based on their covers, and I really try not to, but honestly it's impossible not to be influenced by the way things look. And I know I personally am much more likely to buy a book physically if I find it attractive looking, because at the end of the day it's going to be sitting on my bookshelves and, you know, I want it to look nice. If I don't enjoy the cover of the book but I am interested in the premise of the story, then I'm much more likely to read it on ebook or on audio rather than buying the actual physical copy. So yeah, that's just my personal thing, unless of course it's a loved author of mine and I just want to collect all of their books regardless of what they look like because I'm a big fan, then that's the other like option, I guess. Anyway, I'm going on. Basically we're just going to compare some book covers and I'm really excited. So let's just jump straight in. It's going to be roughly in publication order. So we're going to start with a book that was actually published on the 18th of January this year, and it is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, written by Heather Fawcett. So this is the second book in a fantasy series, and I read the first book when it came out and I absolutely loved it. So I'm super excited to get to this second one. If you haven't heard of this before, it's an adult fantasy. It's kind of a cozy fantasy, I would say, and it follows our main character Emily Wilde, who is a scholar, and she travels up north to this remote Nordic style town to study their fairies and their folklore. And she thinks it's a solo trip, but she actually ends up getting surprised by her work colleague who shows up at her door to help her, and it's kind of a bittersweet situation really, because she doesn't really get on with her colleague. They kind of butt heads a little bit. They're very different. Her colleague, a man called Bumblebee, is very outgoing. He's very gregarious, and she is much more quiet, much more reclusive, and less good, I would say, at speaking to and talking to people. And so she kind of is a little bit annoyed that he's turned up, but at the same time she realises that it's quite helpful having him there because he is very good at the social aspects of her research project. So they end up teaming together and we follow the two of them and their discoveries, and there's a little bit of a romance in there, and it's just such a fun and creative world. So I really enjoyed the first one. It's written like Emily Wilde's journals, so it has quite an academic tone to it, which I feel like you'll either love or you'll hate, so it just depends if that gels with you. But I'm so excited for the second one. Anyway, let's talk about the covers because that's why we're here. So the UK cover is this gorgeous pale green, and honestly I'm immediately drawn to it because I just think it gives off such a cozy vibe. I really love the mushrooms on there and the art style and everything. It really kind of grabs your attention. The other book I would say is a much darker tone. Obviously it's dark green, and it's also very beautiful, but there's something about that colour green that doesn't necessarily grab my attention. I think it's less cutesy. It's still very pretty, but I don't know, I think I prefer the UK version of this book cover. Although I do know that the US cover is actually printed onto the hardback, so it doesn't have like a, what's it called? An outside flap, you know what I mean? It doesn't have one of those. It's actually printed directly onto the book, which I feel like would make it feel more like an actual journal. So I feel like maybe the US one looks better in person, but personally I just prefer the colour palette of the UK one. Okay, so next up we have Tales of the Celestial Kingdom by Sue Lynn Tan. So this, I hadn't heard too much about this one actually, but this is basically Sue Lynn Tan expanding her world because she wrote the Daughter of the Moon Goddess duology. That is a series that I have started reading. I've read the first book. I still need to get to the second book. I don't know why I'm putting it off because I really enjoyed the first book. But this is like kind of an expansion, so she's written a bunch of short stories, I think, that kind of talk a little bit about different characters from this world, and it's stories that are from before, during and after the events of the Daughter of the Moon Goddess series. So I'm really excited for this one. I think both of these covers are absolutely stunning. They're both gorgeous. Honestly, they would look beautiful on a shelf. It's really hard for me to choose between which one I prefer, but I think I am leaning towards the UK one. I don't know, I think possibly because personally green and pink is like one of my favourite like colour combinations, and I just think it looks so pretty. I love the fact that we've got the big moon in the centre of the UK one, and that matches with the other books in this series and just looks really like satisfying, I think. And I don't know, I love the gradient of pink to sort of cream on the moon, and that matches the gradient of the pink on the little fruits on the branch. That just looks really satisfying to me, I guess. And yeah, I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. The US one is also very gorgeous though. It does have that gorgeous purple colour, and there's a lot of detail in this one. I feel like, again, if you had this one physically, you could kind of pick it up and take a close look and appreciate all of the like detail in it. So yeah, a really hard one for me to call, but I think personally I'm leaning towards the UK one. Okay, so next up we have The Fury, written by Alex Michelides. So this is the author of The Silent Patient, quite a popular author, and this is a release that's coming out on the 1st of February. And I'm not sure about these covers. I feel like they're both quite bold, they're both quite abstract and quite intriguing. I don't know a huge amount about the actual plot of this story, but I can see that on the cover of the UK one there is a quote, and it says, "There were 7 of us on the island. One of us was a murderer, the Fury." So obviously it is a thriller type story, I think, that takes place on this isolated island. So I think I am drawn to the UK one again. I think just because it focuses in on this island, so you've obviously got that kind of that square pattern that's kind of zooming in, and then the focal point is the island in the middle of the sea, and that is just kind of drawing my attention straight to there, and I can immediately see where the setting is going to be and what the focus is. And also it's got that gorgeous sunset as well, which is really eye-catching. So I think I am drawn to that one, although I'm very intrigued by the kind of abstractness of the US cover and what's going on with this symbol. It almost looks like an eye to me, an eye that's kind of looking at me. I don't know, that's also very kind of intriguing. It looks a little bit more kind of literary fiction to me, or something a little bit more speculative, whereas I feel like the fury of the UK cover is much more, this is a thriller, if that makes sense. I think it might be because of the bold white text as well. So yeah, interesting. I wouldn't necessarily look at the US one and know that it was like an isolated island thing, although I guess it has got like the beach on it, hasn't it? You can see the sea in the background, but I think because the cover is dominated by that shape, it's not quite as obvious to me as the UK one. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm leaning towards the UK, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Okay, so next up is a book that I'm very excited for. This is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden, and I'm really excited for this one because Catherine Arden is a beloved author. She wrote my favourite fantasy series ever, which is the Bear and the Nightingale series, which is a historical fantasy series based on medieval Russia. Lots of retellings and use of myth and mythology within that story, and it's so good. And so when I saw that she was bringing out another book, I immediately put it on my want to read list. So this one comes out on the 7th of March, and it sounds really interesting. It's set during the Great War, so it follows a combat nurse who's searching for her brother who's believed to be dead in the trenches, despite eerie signs that suggest otherwise. Need I say more? I am in. That sounds fantastic. So for this one, the covers are very different in the UK versus the US editions, and immediately I'm gonna say I'm into the US one. The US one is so much more my vibe, I would say, than the UK one for this story. I don't quite know what they were going for with the UK one, but yeah, the US one has a very kind of gothic vibe to it that I just love. I love the art style, I love the gold around the edges, I love the pop of red with the poppy that the woman is holding. It just looks so gothic and just appealing to me, whereas the UK one seems quite generic. I would look at that cover and I wouldn't really be able to tell you what vibe the story was gonna have. It looks almost a little bit, I don't know, a little bit sci-fi to me. I think it's the blue in the background almost looks like a sky to me, like a kind of spacey sky. I don't know if that's just me. It does have a lot of intricate details around the edges with the gold, with the kind of gold filigree, is that the right word? Kind of pattern around the edges, and you can, if you take a closer look, you can see that there is like a male and a female character in gold around the edges, and there's like a little, is it a violin? Something in the centre of the O of ghosts, surrounded by beams that almost look like a sun to me. Maybe that's why I'm thinking it looks kind of spacey. I don't know. I mean, it's a very pretty cover, but it doesn't draw me in as much as the USA one, and I think that's just because I'm a sucker for all things gothic, and the USA one is very much more gothic vibes. So yeah, US has a winner for that one for me. Okay, so next up we have a new T. Kingfisher release. T. Kingfisher is an author that I do really enjoy. I've read quite a lot of her books, so it's kind of like an auto-buy author for me, so I'm excited to read her next one, which is coming out on the 13th of February, and this one's actually a sequel to What Moves the Dead, which is a horror book that I read and really enjoyed. Did I read it last year or the year before? Honestly, the years are like blurring into one, it's quite scary, but yeah, I really enjoyed What Moves the Dead when I read it. It's an Edgar Allan Poe retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher. It has kind of earthy, gothic, nature horror vibes, and I just loved it. And so we've got the sequel coming out, which is called What Feasts at Night. Again, the US and the UK covers are very different. I'm not a huge fan of either, if I'm being honest. For some reason, both of these covers seem quite flat to me. I think it's just the kind of plain blue and the plain red backgrounds. I mean, definitely the USA cover looks more horrifying to me, with the flesh kind of peeling off the carcass of the horse. Like, that is definitely very clearly a horror book. But there's something strangely beautiful about the UK one. I think I'm just a really big fan of that colour of blue. And also I just really like skulls and butterflies. I I don't know what that says about me, but I think skulls are really pretty, and that definitely screams more of the like nature corrupting horror vibes that I'm really into. So for me personally as a reader, I would be more drawn to the UK one because I know that I like nature horror vibes, whereas the other one doesn't scream nature horror to me. It just screams kind of like, ugh, gross. So yeah, it's a tough one with this one. I feel like a lot of people are going to prefer the US cover, but I personally am more drawn up to the UK one, I think. Right, next up we have The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. So this is actually a debut novel that I think sounds really great. It comes out on the 13th of February, and it's about a girl who is given a book with a message inside telling her that this is the Book of Doors and that any door is every door. So it's a book about books, a fantastical portal fantasy about magic books. I don't need to know anymore, that sounds great. Both of these covers I quite like. So the UK one is definitely more intricate, more gothic. I like the fact that it has almost like a wallpaper type pattern to it. And yeah, they're both quite similar in terms of like what's actually on the cover, because they've got the kind of books that form the staircase that spirals up, and they've both got like an open door. The US one has the girl falling out of the door, which I guess makes it more clear that it's kind of a magical door and a portal fantasy type story, whereas the UK one doesn't have any like character on the front, so you don't know about who the lead is, I guess. But it is more gothic, which I like, and it is a little bit more intricate, so I personally think I'm leaning towards the UK one. Also, again, with the US one, it seems almost quite flat. I know it's obviously the background colour of blue isn't a flat blue because it's got like kind of brighter spot around the door in the middle, so it does have a gradient to it, but it just still seems quite flat to me. I don't know if it's because it's next to the UK one, which is much more intricate, and so it's making the US one look very simplistic. But yeah, they're both nice, but I personally prefer the aesthetic of the UK one for this. Right, so next up we have a book called My Throat an Open Grave by Tori Bovalino. So this is a young adult horror book, and it sounds really interesting because it says that it's labyrinth meets folk horror in this darkly romantic tale of a girl who wishes her baby brother away to the Lord of the Wood. I feel like there's lots of buzzwords in there for me. Labyrinth meets folk horror. Yes, please. A Lord of the Wood. Sounds so good. Again, the covers for these are very different, and I don't know. So the UK one obviously is, I would say, more ambiguous. It's less overtly horror. It's got kind of those plants with the hands coming out of it. So again, like I said before, I'm a fan of nature horror. So for me, as a personal preference, I would feel like I'd be more inclined to pick up My Throat an Open Grave, the UK cover. Sorry, I don't know which way around I'm putting them on here, but the UK cover. Whereas the US one is very clearly horror. You've got the skulls in the background, which I quite like. Obviously the main figure in the middle, she's got her throat extended, so it's accentuating the fact that it's My Throat an Open Grave. And of course you've got that bloody handprint on her chest. I would say the USA one looks more YA to me, I think because you tend to have that style of like having a character on the front in YA books. And I don't know, I think there's something about the handprint on the US one which is putting me off. It just makes me think of Halloween and like fake blood and just like a fake blood costume. It doesn't look too scary to me. It looks just a little bit, almost a little bit cheesy, dare I say it. But then again, the UK one does look quite generic, and if I saw that amongst other books on the shelves without reading what this was about, I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, I really want to go ahead and read that. So yeah, it's a little bit difficult for me to decide. I think I'm going to lean towards the UK one for this one, but the US one is definitely very striking and more obviously horror. Okay, so next up we have another YA book, and this one is Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Horonek. This one comes out on the 27th of February and it's a YA fantasy romance about a girl who makes a bargain with the demon warden of the wood. So for me, there is a very, very clear winner for this one, and that is the US cover. I personally think it's so much better than the UK one. It is so whimsical. I love the US cover. It looks beautiful. I love the costume, the clothing that the female character is wearing, the fact that you have the wood kind of surrounding the two characters. You've obviously got the obvious hint of a romance between the male and female characters there, and you can see that the male character has these horns, so you instantly know that it's a fantasy romance. I love all the little butterflies. It just is such a charming, whimsical, obviously YA romance cover. So I just love the USA one. I'm just picking up to see if there's any more details. Oh yeah, I can see that there's actually little eyes in the wood, which is really cool. Like in the wood surrounding the two characters, there's actually like eyeballs. Again, straight in with the slightly eerie fantasy vibes. So yeah, I just love that. It makes me want to buy the book just because of how pretty it is. It does sound like quite a generic fantasy plot, I'm not gonna lie, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, the UK one, I don't know what they were thinking with this one because I am just not a big fan of it. I think that it looks very generic. It would be really easy to pass over this one, I think, if it was just on the shelves. It's not obvious that it's a fantasy romance because we don't have two characters on the front. There's no hint of any romanticness about that cover. I also find it quite hard to see the like stag on the front there because of the colour choices. So you've obviously got that blue colour and then the white stag head, but it's quite hard to make out the stag against the pale blue and also with the gold text on top. I don't know, it's quite, you have to kind of like look at it a bit closely to figure out what it is. And there's also like details that I feel like are lost, like there's a butterfly in the top as well. In the blue background, that's quite hard to see. A really tiny moon. I like that there's little mushrooms on the bottom, little purple mushrooms, but again they don't really stand out enough to make it obvious that this is like a kind of naturey, foresty type setting. I mean, it does have all the branches obviously around the side, which kind of gives away that it is that foresty setting, but yeah, I'm really not a fan of that UK one. I think it looks very generic. I wouldn't necessarily know what type of story I was getting into if I had this one, and I don't think that it would stand out on my shelves. So yeah, clear winner for the US one in my opinion. Okay, so next up we have an adult book, and this is Dragon Rider by Taran Matharu. This one comes out on the 2nd of April and is the first book in a new adult fantasy series that sounds so good. It's set in a world of magic, warriors and dragons. I don't feel like I need to know any more. Again, these two covers are very different. I do like both of them, but immediately on first impressions I'm drawn to the UK cover for this book. I just love the ombre of the dragon on the UK cover, that kind of gradient from the red through to the yellow with the kind of flames licking the bottom of the dragon. I just love the style of it. I love the white cover. The text is bold and easy to read, and I just think aesthetically it's really clean, simple, but also eye-catching, and I just love it. I'm not so keen on the USA one, but I do like the fact that you have that main character on the front there looking kind of fierce. You can see the dragon wings, the kind of moody sky, and like the trees and the mist and everything. It does make it kind of a little bit edgy, I would say. But I think there's something about having that character in that style, in that pose on the front cover that makes me think YA. I think if I saw that cover, I'd be like, oh, that's a YA fantasy, whereas the other one looks more adult to me. I don't know why, but it just does. So yeah, for me, I'm definitely leaning towards the UK cover. Next up, we have a very cute sounding book which is called Cant Spell, Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. This one is coming out on the 10th of May, and it's a cozy fantasy about two women who want to open a bookshop. So I feel like there's been a huge wave towards cozy fantasy recently. I feel like Bookshops and Bone Dust and gosh, what's the first one called by Travis Baldry? How have I forgotten? But I feel like those books have really like sparked a passion in readers for more cozy fantasy, and we're seeing a little bit more of it, which is really nice. It says on the blurb that what follows is a cozy tale of mishaps, mysteries, and a murderous queen throwing the realm's biggest temper tantrum. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really charming one. Again, we have two very different covers on here. I like the colour choice and the simplicity of the UK one with the red cover and the gold ivy around the sides. You've got that little dragon at the top, you've got the house at the bottom. I like the fact that the road forms the A of T. And it does look very like appealing to me. I think it looks cozy in its colour palette. It looks very autumnal, I think, because of the red and the gold. The US one is more obviously cozy fantasy to me because I feel like you can see the bookshop. You can see the two different characters sitting there by the fireplace. I feel like I should enjoy the US one more than I do. I think it's something about the colour palette. It kind of comes across a little bit grey to me. There's quite a lot of greyish tones. So I just wish they had a warmer tone to it. Maybe if it was zoomed in a little bit more on the characters, because you can't really see them that well because they're quite small. Looking closer at the cover, I can see that the female character who's sitting in the armchair has like a sword or a dagger next to her, which makes it more obvious that it is a fantasy. But again, that's quite hard to see because it's really small, so I just wish it was kind of zoomed in a little bit and maybe had I don't know, slightly different colour palette, less greys. I also feel like the writing, Can't Spell Treason without T, is quite hard to read against the background as well. So yeah, I think I prefer the UK one this time. Okay, and the final book that I have to chat with you about today is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. This, of course, is from the author of The Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I know was really popular. It's another cozy fantasy, and this one is about a witch who has a second chance to get her magical powers and her life back on track. It sounds really, really charming, and yeah, there's also a very clear winner for me in terms of the cover art. I much prefer the US cover art for this one. As I said before, I really enjoy pink and green as like colour combination, so aesthetically that's really appealing to me, but also it's just so much more obvious that it's a cozy fantasy. I don't know what they were thinking with the UK one. It is a very, very pretty cover, but to me it almost looks like a middle grade. It looks kind of like a children's book, really, like about a picnic or something. I think because you don't have the characters on the front, it's not clear that it is like a romance in any way. It doesn't look particularly magical, it just looks like a charming cozy cottage, but it's just not, I just wouldn't look at that and think it was like an adult book or a romance book at all. I would just think, oh, that's a nice little children's story. But yeah, zooming in a little bit on the US cover as well, there are also lots of lovely little details in there. I love the fact that we've got the fox curled around the female character, that she's holding a book. You've got the male character with a cup of tea, which is just so cozy. I like the fact that they've got the gate open, so it's almost like welcoming us into the house and your eyes are kind of drawn to the house on the hilltop. The fact that there's ivy around the house, and also the very shape of the house looks kind of magical to me in some way. The sky is really beautiful with that gradient of pink and sort of peachy colours. You've got little stars, little gold stars dotted throughout, which tells me that it's going to be a little bit magical as well. And I love all of the little pops of pink with the flowers and everything on there as well. Yeah, clear winner. Absolutely love the cover for the US one. It looks really, really beautiful and it makes me want to buy the book. So there we have it. There were a bunch of books that are coming out in 2024 and have different covers. Please let me know in the comment section which covers you prefer. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you excited to pick up any of these books? Thanks again for supporting my channel. As I said in the beginning, it honestly means the world if you subscribed, if you watch my videos, if you like my videos, any of that stuff. I'm just hugely thankful to you, and it's been such a pleasure making these videos, and I don't know, I'm really like speechless really at where it's come, and I don't know, I feel awkward talking about it, but like, thank you if you've supported my channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please feel free to do so if you want to see some more videos from me, and don't forget to like this video and all of that stuff. And yeah, I guess I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!